most part I ate when I was full and stuff. I ate until I was full. Like, I enjoyed food, I loved food, so, you know, for the most part I was alright, I think, but still, like, back in the day, you know, everyone wanted to be thinner, so I definitely think there was that kind of pressure there still. But I know when it all started, it was when I did my high school exchange. So I basically did a high school gap year, exchange, where I went to the United States of America. I did a year of my high school in California, and I stayed with a host family, several, but that's for another video. With this host family, it was like two parents, and all their kids were grown up and didn't live at home, and so they got two exchange students. So like, I had a buddy, this girl from Austria, which is always fun, Austria and Australia, and I think though they were a bit in over their heads, like, to get two exchange students, and I think they had all these grand plans of things they would do with us, and then it didn't all work out in the end. Like, it sounded nice in theory to like take your exchange students out and show them around, but you know, it can be quite tiring if you're like working a full-time job as well. And so basically, and also we didn't completely get on with them, and basically on the weekends, because like we didn't have cars, we didn't know how to drive, me and my exchange sister Hannah, and Hannah, I wonder how she's doing now. I've kind of lost touch with her. And so on the weekends, sometimes we'd just be like left on our own at the house, and you know, we couldn't really go anywhere or do anything. You know, where we lived wasn't a place with public transport, and they had Netflix though, and lots of snacks. So I just remember like staying at home and watching the Kardashians on Netflix, and just like eating away, eating my feelings, like emotional eating essentially. And it was partly because we had nothing to do, but also, you know, it was a bit sad. Like, you really like built up this year and this experience, and then to feel like your host family kind of like rejects you and you're not making the most of your time. So what better way to like deal with it than to just eat your feelings? And then also the US as well, they have lots of delectable foods, and you know, everything's a bit fattier, saltier, sugary, more sugary, oilier, you know, all the things. And you know, like, you're a tourist, so you want to try all the good stuff. So it like made sense that I was going to gain some weight that year, and that's like totally fine when you go on a holiday during Christmas and all those type of things. But you know, my parents growing up, they were never like really terrible saying like, oh, you're fat or things like this, but there would be the odd comment from them, either about other people that they would notice who were overweight, or it would be about me. Or I just remember before going on my exchange, my dad specifically told me, don't get fat, don't come back fat. And you know, that was like a terrible thing for him to say in hindsight, and like there's no way he would say anything like that to me now, because he knows better. Like, I would just go nuts if anyone told me that kind of thing now. But you know, I grew up with those like little comments here and there about, you know, like having big whatever, I don't even want to say the specifics of it, but you know, just little things like that. So then when I did gain weight over that year, like a noticeable amount, you know, it just makes you think like, oh, like, are my parents, they're gonna notice, and like they're not gonna approve of it, or they're not gonna like it, or they're you were and you needed to lose weight. And but the thing is, like, fat shaming of any sort, it tends to do the opposite, because, like, so I've read this book called How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger. Highly recommend. If you just want to know anything about like weight loss or why people gain weight, why there's an obesity epidemic, any of that, it's all like full of stats and fact-based. It's like 600 pages. It's ridiculous, but it's amazing. But they talked about it in there, which is really good. They said if you are like overweight or obese and you experience some type of fat shaming, you're 3 times more likely to stay at that weight than someone who is overweight and doesn't experience fat shaming. So if the sole goal of fat shaming, which is awful, is to help someone to lose weight and get healthier, it doesn't even work. But most of the time that's not the reason why people fat shame. It's just because we are just not used to society like seeing and accepting people of different body shapes and sizes. It's just this facade that, like, oh, it's for their health. Not really, unfortunately. People just suck, to be honest. Oh, and as well, I just wrote some more notes from the book. Said those who report more frequent fat prejudice experience higher levels of depression, inflammation, oxidative stress, as well as shorter lifespans. So, like, it kind of makes sense that, like, when you get comments about like your weight and how you look, like negative ones, that could lead to binge eating disorder. It just like makes it worse. So be kind, people. But yes, I think it's like those little seeds of doubt that just make things worse. So then when I got back to Australia, then I got into the whole like Fitspo, weight loss, MyFitnessPal, calorie counting world, and I did try like a lot of like fad diet type of things. Like I tried those like awful detox teas. I'm so sorry if any of you have had to go through that. They suck and it is awful. But I tried that, just basically this like stupid like diet culture world, and at that point I didn't know what binge eating was, binge eating disorder. I'd never heard of it. And you know, I think over the years my weight like went up and down and fluctuated as I tried different like weight loss things, and you know, I would have periods where things were great and So yeah, I definitely tried lots of different things over the years, and I thought I'd go through some of them. So I, like, very early on when I was in university in Australia, they had like free counselling there, and this was when I thought I had issues with binge eating but didn't really know what it was. So I went and saw the psychologist, and I saw a guy, because I think you didn't really have a choice, and I think because at that time I wasn't overweight, so he just like kind of dismissed me as like not having any problems with food, which is terrible because you can't just judge if someone has an eating disorder on how they look. So that was like really poor form on his part. But he basically told me to just eat more slowly and to try something like just eat with your left hand. That is the worst advice. Like, if I'm in like deep into a binge, nothing is going to stop me from eating. Like, that requires willpower to eat more slowly or with your left hand. Like, that does absolutely nothing, and it just shows he had no idea what binge eating is, where you just almost like tunnel vision, like you can't think of anything else, and you just have such this like heightened craving that you just need to eat as much food that will satisfy that craving as quickly as possible. So you're not going to eat slowly or with your left hand or with chopsticks or anything ridiculous like that. And so after that I went to one session and I never came back, because I felt like, what's the point, why bother? But like, that was the opportunity for me to like get help really early on, and he didn't do that, so that was, yeah, just a really like bad experience I had with the psychologist. But I have had good experience with the psychologist, so I know some people out there, you've only like ever tried like 1 or 2 psychs. I've been to like 6 or so, and they are not all the same, so I would recommend like definitely going to someone different. If you don't get along or you're not getting much out of the time you're spending with one person. So I also tried, this is so funny, I went to Overeaters Anonymous. Like, they have like Alcoholics Anonymous. I googled it, there's such thing as Overeaters Anonymous, and it's like very much the same as AA. And so I just, such a weird time in my life, like I didn't have a car, and so I got onto the train and went to this, I think it was like a community centre, and I don't know what I expected out of it, like how many people I thought would go, or if there would be people my age, which is so strange. And so I went to like this in-person OA meeting, and there was like a few people, and they were all like at least 40 years old. There was no one my age. There was like, I think 4 or 5 other people, and it was just the strangest, very like cult vibes. And looking back, I mean, none of them were psychologists, none of them were qualified in like eating disorder treatment. They were just people like dealing with overeating, and all they would do, they would just seem to be like sad and miserable. And this lady who was the sort of facilitator, she was still dealing with binge eating and had been like leading these groups for like, I'm sure it was like at least 10 years. So I was like, oh, I thought this group is supposed to help me, and you've been going for like 10 years. And it was just like people went around in a circle and like just said what they were dealing with, but they all just went into super detail of like their binges and what they would eat. And I just remember one guy was like a truck driver and would like talk about like all the food and stuff he ate. so sometimes it's hard to define it. I also like tried like rewarding myself if I didn't binge that day, like, oh, I'll let myself buy some piece of clothing or like makeup if I don't binge. That never worked. If you want to binge, you're gonna binge. Like, it's very hard to, like, for me, once my brain locks onto it, like plans the like food I'm gonna eat, it's basically happening, and I'd rather now just accept that and be like, okay, that's cool, and then tomorrow we'll like get myself together. I don't know. But also, what doesn't work is comments from family members when they know that you're dealing with binge eating, saying things like, are you gonna eat that? Are you gonna eat all of that? I think that's enough. Wow, you're gonna eat all of that? Like, those type of comments are terrible because they make you feel like you're being watched. I know, like, my mom was trying to be helpful, but for me, it just made me want to eat. I would just eat more in secret. I would just lie about what I was eating. But it caused my binge eating when I like lived at home with my mom. It caused so many arguments because she was like buying like the food and stuff, like especially when I was studying and wasn't working, you know, so she was in control of the food, and then if I ate everything and then didn't have anything else, like it would just cause so many arguments. And like I totally get it, but yeah, it really strained our relationship. And there was a period of time where I moved out into my dad's house, and I thought like everything was like gonna be great there, and eventually my like binge eating ruined that too, and like we would argue about like how much I was eating, and it's harder to explain it to your parents, but eventually like many yelling matches had to get to the point where I had to tell them, you can't comment on what I'm eating, it does not help, it makes it worse, because there would be times where I felt like I was eating fine and like I knew myself I wasn't like binge eating, but they didn't know that, and so then they would make comments, and I had to get to the point where I had to say, do not comment on what I am eating, like anything. It just, I found it, yeah, just really unhelpful, but I mean, and it's kind of like setting a boundary, right? Like, please do not comment on the quantity or the type of food that I am eating. Like, sure, they could say like, oh, like, what are you eating in terms of, like, they want the recipe or whatever, but anything on like the amount of food, just, I had to tell my family, like, please do not do it. And like that was helpful, telling them not to, but like it took a lot of time to get to that point because they just couldn't see that. And so then a little bit closer to now, I went on another exchange because, you know me, I just love to escape my life here in Australia. I did the Disney college program, and the binge eating surfaced there as well. Basically, I had a really good first month there. And then I got some news, or I had some issues with one of the jobs that I was doing there, and that was really stressing me out. And socially, I was having a really good time though. You know, I really got on with my housemates, and I was like meeting new friends, and we were like going out to the parks and drinking and doing all the fun things, and it's like you're at Disney World, like amazing. And I just, you know, had that tight sort of knit community, or that I was building anyway. It was all just starting, but like there was always things to do, and I was messaging people like assigned a home location, and then you can like switch shifts and maybe work in different places, but you're mainly stationed in that one place. And I really didn't like my home location. I just didn't really connect with anyone, and I felt like it was like the location, it was a lot slower, so there was more focus on like you've got to like interact with customers all the time because there's nothing else for you to do, you know, there's no like cleaning or like other just tasks. just going outside or doing something different. Or I know in the last video at the very end I mentioned that I was going to join a yoga class at a yoga studio, and I did, and that was great. But then when I started a new job this year, I like stopped going as much. But I know like now if I start going again, like that's going to be really helpful for me. But I'm definitely less pessimistic about binge eating than I used to be, because I think, okay, it is partly to do with the vegan thing, because like now I've dealt with it so long. I know like my weight like fluctuates like up to a certain point and like back down, and whereas like before I just felt like I was gaining and gaining and gaining weight, and I don't want this all to be like, oh, it's like terrible to gain weight, but for me it was more like the feeling, like I know it was like just feeling uncomfortable in my like body, because I know I've had times where I'm at a higher weight but I'm like exercising and I still like feel really good. So I know it's more the feeling of it, of being like lethargic and tired and just like not in control of your body, not feeling like you can just jump up and dance and do the things, you know. So I just do feel a bit more at peace with it, but like it's still frustrating to me because sometimes it feels like it's out of your control. As I said before, it like has, I feel like, just taken time away from me, where like it feels like you're having a sick day but it's self-inflicted. It's frustrating. Like I was just writing some notes. It's impacted my like housemate situation, because you know, people, they don't understand when you're going through like a bad phase. Like they don't know like the reasoning why, they don't know how long it's gonna last, and neither do I. You know, when I like at the start of this year was like a really good time for me, and I got on so well with my housemates, and I know it's because like I was just feeling better and I was just chattier, and but it's just really hard at those other times, you know, because you can't really explain it to someone, and if you're not like that close with them, as with my housemates, I'm not going to be like, oh, by the way, I'm going through a binge right now, you know. So it's definitely difficult, and it's impacted a lot of my friendships